go home tonight, I'd load the truck up with all the tools. No, go ahead. He knows. He's learned already.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Community Development Committee meeting on April 20th. We're going to have call to order. We'd like to do roll.
Dan Hansen. Ryan Shirley.
Present.
Jerry Van Someren.
Present.
Sean Anderson.
Here.
Dick Hesselink.
Scott Conner is excused. No, Scott called me just a few minutes before, and he said that he can't make it online. So, does anybody have any questions, comments, or changes to the minutes from our last meeting? Very good. Minutes will stand approved. We're going to go into public comment. Right. I would like to just say that Mr. Fishbauer? Okay. We'll ask you to talk during the meeting, the official public hearing. Sure. Just that's a second step. So take public comment, and we'll start with Mr. Aaron Sundin.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Sundin, 310 Elm Street, Hudson, Wisconsin. I also work for Derrick Companies in New Richmond. I am the president of the board of directors for the St. Croix Economic Development Authority, and that's our corporation, and that's why I'm here tonight. I know this is on the agenda topic. I was here the end of last year. We had another topic come up regarding a services agreement. Mr. Hansen, you were not here, but you're going to hear a lot of the same things that I said at that meeting again tonight. And I think just to remind people, when that services agreement was brought up previously, it was voted down by this committee 4-0. So what's bothersome here is there's a lot of comments going out kind of across the community from you, Mr. Hansen. I understand you were at the New Richmond the meeting last week for the Chamber of Commerce. The agenda topic and the fact that what's in there talks about the integrity of the EDC, where funds are unaccounted for. I mean, it's just, when I was here 4 or 5 months ago, we talked about collaboration, we talked about open communication. It's not there, but it is there with a lot of the other members, the county board members. And so how do we get over this? My phone is always on. You can reach me anytime. If you want to talk about what we do and the impact we have, happy to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So we've been around for 30 years as of this year, 2023. We've done as much to facilitate economic growth and development in this county as any other organization. I'd be happy to sit down and break down facts for people if I need to. You look at our board, you look at our members and how they touch this county, but they're also parts of boards and committees, whether it's their business boards that touch globally or nationally, whether it's economic development boards, Momentum West, other areas. We have a finger on the pulse of what those issues are. And again, to say we don't do anything or that we're not touching some of those important issues, whether it's workforce development, growth in St. Croix County, is just plain old false. Over the past 2 years, the EDC has held 37 in-person and virtual events, providing resources to area businesses regarding workforce issues, economic issues, COVID, all those things. Again, it's been happening. It happens all the time. I believe you guys get communication on this, and if you're not following up on it or you need more information, happy to provide it. We view our board and our members as kind of an ecosystem of economic development. there's a breadth of knowledge there. And again, we want to share it with the county. We want to be able to work with the county on this. We've helped numerous businesses with incentives, with financing, helping them find financing for growth, work expansion, adding workers, things like that, that impact St. Croix County positively with tax revenue, with sales tax, with all these things as we try to attract businesses and people to this area. We are currently running a marketing campaign that is to attract workers. Workforce shortages are a real thing, not only in the state, but St. Croix County, Polk counties, and worse shape than we are. We all know it. We're out there trying with this marketing campaign to attract workers to come here. Not necessarily picking them from River Falls to come to Hudson. Let's look to try to draw workers from the Twin Cities or other areas. We did another marketing campaign previously 2 years ago called Think Make, or through the WEDC, and basically it was live, work, play in St. Croix County. Had a tremendous effect, and happy to share those statistics with you. You can see the impact that it had and the branding that it brought to this area. I'll just say this, at the end of the day, you guys have the choice every year to decide if you're going to be a member or not. We certainly don't feel that we should be excluded from anything when it comes to budget cuts. You just had a referendum that didn't go through. I understand that. But again, to say we're going to wipe this thing out, we're going to get rid of this, they don't do anything, is ridiculous. I'm going to say it one more time. Call me, email me. Administrator Witt has my contact information. You know the board members that are on our board, talk to them. But we're not here to hide anything, and that's why we sent over all the information that we did. If you want to question that more later, I'm here. But I want to move this forward, and if tonight you make a decision, take it to the county board level, and let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we'll open a public hearing. Ordinance amending Chapter 18, St. Croix County floodplain zoning. And at this point, we will ask for a staff report. Brett Boudreau.
My mouse does not want to roll.
Try putting it on the toolbar.
Oh, got it. Sorry.
If
Yeah.
it'll go, it may or may not.
All right. Good evening, Chair Hansen and committee. Tonight, we're bringing forward the floodplain amendment for Chapter 18, Section 130B, official maps. We had a brief introduction to this last month. I wanted to bring it to your attention before we had the actual public hearing. The Wisconsin DNR did dam failure analysis for 2 of St. Croix County's dams. They provided it to us through written letter and correspondence, which is included as an attachment. As a result, we're required by the Wisconsin DNR and various state statutes to update our floodplain zoning ordinance. We'll get to that in another section here, and we can review the actual ordinance and the areas that are impacted. This would be the language of the amending ordinance. If you've reviewed that. Some other further background information. As I said, the Wisconsin DNR sent us this information requiring it to be updated. And these official maps, if you recall, we adopted the floodplain ordinance a year ago on March 1st. And these 2 official maps, the official maps section gets reviewed by the DNR when we redid the ordinance a year ago. And these 2 dam failure analyses were not included in that review. So we could have gotten this completed last year. This is an excerpt of our floodplain ordinance, Chapter 18.13, official maps. A lists out all of the official maps in the firms, the flood insurance rate maps that are part of the flood insurance study. These two additional dam failure analysis are part of the official maps based on other studies. This is the language that we will be including: Little Falls Dam Failure Analysis and the Riverdale Dam Failure Analysis with their associated hydraulic studies, floodway data, and flood profiles. The location of these two dams within St. Croix County are listed on this map here. Doesn't quite fit on my screen. The Riverdale is up here in town of Star Prairie, just above Somerset on the Apple River. That's the Xcel Energy or NSP dam. The second dam is the Little Falls Dam that is part of the state park. This is the map of the Little Falls Dam area, and I'll just highlight a couple of things here. The green fill color is the dam failure analysis area, and the blue line with the blue dots is where the existing floodway is. So that's the existing floodway that's in existence right now, which is part of our ordinance. And the green is where the new dam failure area would be. So some places the dam failure area is smaller. If you can see my mouse up in that area, it's smaller. And over here, it expands beyond the floodway just by elevation in the area that's taken up and with the improved data. One of the things that we did through this study was we compared those two floodways, and we found the properties that were in the new dam failure area that weren't in the previous flood area, and we did a separate mailing to those folks. Through those mailings, I've received 2 telephone calls about the studies and was able to respond to both of those and answer their questions. And both of them there weren't any structures in the new dam failure area. This is the Riverdale Dam. Again, right here, the dam structure itself. The new dam failure area does expand into this area here just below the dam. There aren't any structures in there that I'm aware of. We did send mailings to those highlighted parcels. And again, you can see that the new dam failure area goes in and out a little bit compared to the existing floodway. And it extends down here through the town of Somerset all the way to the St. Croix River. These are the letters that we received from the Wisconsin DNR informing of this. They reference down here that they shall be formally adopted into the floodplain zoning ordinance. That's what we're doing tonight. Here's our other information we received from the Wisconsin DNR listing out the parcels that were affected and the new floodway from the hydraulic shadow. Again, much of that floodway from the hydraulic shadow is already floodway. Another part of the Little Falls Dam. This is providing the actual floodway and the base flood elevation. The regulatory floodway is 755. 755 with the floodway, so there's been no increase in that sense with this new dam failure analysis. It just has shifted a little bit in the spatial area. And again, some of the engineering data and studies. Moving on to the town of Star Prairie Riverdale Dam, same letter, similar map information showing that dam failure flood area. And similar to the Little Falls Dam, we sent mailings to any of these affected properties, and I did receive a call from some of the folks around the Somerset. Again, these maps provide engineering data and elevations. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that, other than again, the dam failure area and the existing floodway are pretty similar in both cases. We put out the public hearing notice, and that's the summary of my report. Any questions?
Why don't we hold committee questions until after we ask the
Okay.
public? Do we have anybody in the public who'd like to speak? I know we would have Mr. Fashionbauer. Why don't you go ahead and take your turn right now?
Hi, name is Bob Fashionbauer. I live at 984 Priester Lane. I'm about 3/4 of a mile downstream on the race branch of the Willow River from the Little Falls Dam. You, Brett? Okay, hi. I believe I got my questions asked. Brett was kind enough to call me back as I was actually in the car on the way here. But my concern was when I built in 1995, I actually had to fight to get the FEMA map adjusted, so I did not have to buy flood insurance, because after talking to surveyors and the Corps of Engineers, and I had a bunch of people out at the property, it was determined that 907 was the floodplain, and the lowest part of my elevation, or my house pad, was 914. So I've got documentation from the county and from the FEMA map stating that I was taken out of letter of map amendment determination document removal. So I just wanted to be sure, because the map that I was sent, it's such a hard scale to read, that I indeed at 984 Priester Lane will not be put back into the floodplain so I don't have to get flood insurance, or if I sell my house, it doesn't affect my property value. Brett assured me that actually it did not. My only question was, now, I mean, listen, Brett, you said those that were going to be affected received a letter. I received a letter, and yet you're saying I'm not affected, so is that?
The affected properties not moved.
So any of the, how do I phrase this? If there was, where the dam failure analysis was larger than the existing floodway, we sent letters. We didn't review that against the actual structure. So this dam failure analysis does come up a little bit closer on a piece of your property, but near his house, where his structure actually is, it's actually farther away. But we didn't analyze each individual parcel to that detail.
Thank you, Brett, for explaining that. And you took my cell phone, good try.
I was wondering.
Yeah, so I guess I just want on record that I am indeed not put back in the floodplain. That is actually further from my structure. And that, I guess I just came for clarification on that, and probably wouldn't even be here had, I was already on my way when I talked to Brett, but.
Well, it's always good to meet our neighbors.
Thank you. What's that?
It's always good to meet our neighbors, right?
Yes,
So, thanks for coming by.
Yes, it is, very much. So,
But
thank you.
Your previous letter, you still have no need for insurance because you're set, then you're
Correct.
satisfied
And that
with
was,
the
to get my
documentation.
loan, which, I don't have to worry about now. I was more concerned about when I went to sell, if the new person has to get a loan and be in the FEMA map, it's a problem as opposed to if it's not. So it does make a big difference.
And if you're not satisfied, be sure to call, and if you're not satisfied with that, call somebody else. Just be sure to call.
Perfect.
Right, thank you.
Right, thank you much.
Anybody else from the public, if you'd like to ask about the floodplain ordinance, we'd be happy to hear from you now. Step up to the microphone, please.
Hi, my name is Kathy Revard. I live at 1828 County Road C in Somerset. And I did receive a letter as part of a landowner that the Riverdale Dam could affect. It looks like according to that map, my property is a major flood zone. Now, it's highlighted in that green area. I guess I'm kind of just wondering, what does that mean for us as a landowner? We've been there, our entire lives. This is something new to us, and guess being in the area where we are having more development and stuff like that, how is that going to affect us for the future, for sale and so forth? So just some clarification and so forth.
I would be primarily affecting structures and
Okay.
any buildings that you might want to put into the floodway.
And that's what we're wondering, because we have a large farm there intentively building in the future, and it looks like it's right in that, 100 and some acres that we own.
Okay,
So,
yeah. I can review that
Okay.
and for you if you give me the specific area and get back to you on
Absolutely.
further. But
Or-
it really affects structures and what you can do there.
okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thanks very much. Ms. Rivard, if you hadn't signed the sheet for speaking during the public meeting, if you would, please, before you go. Yeah, thanks very much. All right, would anybody else from public like to speak on the public hearing on the floodplain ordinance? All right, that being the case, we will close that section of the public hearing on the floodplain ordinance, move into our business items. Number 1 being an ordinance amending Chapter 18 floodplain zoning, Section 18.130B. And I would ask the committee if they'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt this floodplain analysis into the ordinance.
We have a motion and a second. And would there be further discussion or questions? Seeing none, why don't we vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. And that motion passes. Let's move into business item number 2, summary report on UWRF survey and online survey for the comprehensive plan update. That'll be John Hilgers.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. Tonight, we're going to be talking to you about the comprehensive plan update. As the committee is aware, staff has begun the process of updating the plan document. Basically, the comprehensive plan is a document that represents the long-range vision for the future development of the county. To begin our outreach process, and as part of the discussion we had with you late last year, part of our outreach process includes conducting a number of resident surveys from residents across the county in cities, villages, and towns. So what we're going to cover with you tonight, we're going to be providing basically an executive summary of those results. Basically, the UWRF survey was a resident mail-out survey by the Research Center. The statistically valid results were achieved through a random sample survey. And so that was sent out late last year. The responses we got resulted in a survey with 95% confidence level with a plus or minus 4% response rating. So for tonight, we're going to give a brief overview. The details of the full report are in the packet tonight, and it will also be posted on the project webpage beginning tomorrow after our presentation tonight. So again, for future discussions, when we have more detailed discussions with the committee on land use issues, we'll be pulling out more detailed responses that ask more questions about the land use portion of the survey. So as far as the UWRF survey, we worked with Dr. Shahir Burney. Dr. Burney is the director of the Survey Research Center of UWRF, River Falls. And with their help, we were able to put together a survey that was done similarly in 2008. So we have some very good questions and answers to compare the results after 14 years. This survey was launched in September of 2022, last fall. Again, these results were achieved through a random sample survey of residents in towns, villages, and cities. To get the analysis we needed, we sent out 1,266 individual surveys, which also included an additional 300 surveys to people who rented or rental units within the county. The survey included questions that make up the chapters of our comprehensive plan, so we're going to touch real briefly on responses related to quality of life, growth, community facilities, land use, and transportation. I just have 6 or 7 slides. We'll touch on some of the highlights. Quality of life. The residents responded by 92% that the quality of life in the county is good or excellent. This is very similar to what we saw in 2008. When asked the top 3 reasons for living in St. Croix County, you can see there in order. People like the small town atmosphere, rural character, proximity to family and friends, and proximity to the Twin Cities. In a very close 4 and 5, the 4th reason was low crime rates, and number 5 was proximity to jobs. The next item we kind of highlighted in red, which was kind of a telling response. 43% of the respondents feel the quality of life will worsen in the next 10 years. This is a lower rating than we saw in 2008. And a little bit of background, some of the analysis we speculated upon was when the 2008 survey went out. That was about the time we were getting into the middle of the Great Recession. People were having trouble with jobs, the economy, the housing bubble. Interestingly, when we conducted the survey in 2022, we were just coming out of COVID. So maybe not local and regional issues, but there was a lot of things going on in the world that impacted, and we think that some of the responses may be related to things bigger than St. Croix County itself. This last bullet item is an open-ended question. When asked, what one thing would you want to change about St. Croix County? We've got some very interesting responses. And the way they're listed were in the order based on the volume received. People mentioned lower taxes, address urban sprawl from the Twin Cities, address excessive commercial and housing development, preserve ag areas, and alleviate traffic congestion and improve roads. So 5 of those 6 issues are development related, relating to what one thing would you change about St. Croix County. Next, we asked a population growth question. What do you think about the rate of population growth? 43% of the residents feel that the county experienced too much growth. This is up from 2008 when we had 40% response in that category. So the perception is still there that, a little bit less than half think the county's experienced too much growth. Next, we asked people to rate community facilities and services. So this goes to county services as well as libraries and schools. The percent approval rating was being rated as good or excellent. The numbers are fairly self-explanatory. I can tell you that in all the categories, they are up from 2008, anywhere from 2 to 5%. The one item that stayed about the same was the recycling, and that came in 2008 at about 57%. Next, we asked people about the protection of natural and public resources. Going from left to right on your screen, we have 9 different items. People agreed or strongly agreed that the protection of resources are important. Rating from groundwater quality, scenic views, open space, they go to the right. All the responses were over 90%. The ones that saw the biggest increases since 2008, scenic views increased 8%, protection of wetlands increased 8%, and wildlife habitat went up 6%. Next slide is what role the county should play when it comes to our role in protecting natural resources as a county. 67% of the respondents thought the county should be in the education business, providing education materials to owners. 59% stated we should be an advocate as far as pursuing outside funding to match local dollars for preservation. And the Community Development Department is very active in that role, getting natural resource grants for our TMDL projects in the watershed for water quality. We also get park grants, for the development of some of our park resources and the ability to access the natural resource areas. 43% and 30% respectively thought that the county should improve the enforcer category, expand enforcement activities, and impose stricter regulations and ordinances. 5% thought the county should do none of these. And these are about the same from 2008. Sorry. Next, we get into housing. We asked a question about residents' preference for development design. And you see the picture of two subdivisions on your map. We have a traditional subdivision that we see quite a few of in the rural area. Those are 2 to 3 acre lots with a road that goes through the subdivision. None of the property is really allocated for public benefit. It's all privately owned. You see a water feature that goes through the property, whether that's a creek or a river. The cluster conservation design development concept promotes the preservation of resources that are shown in gray here. So for example, we don't have any private ownership that overlays the creek. It's protected as a natural resources. This process does allow smaller lots that you see here. And in St. Croix County, we do have such an ordinance that allows that type of development. The county currently requires this gray area to be 60% of the area of the project. And in return, developers can get bonus densities of up to 25% of what they could through a major subdivision. And to do that, we do allow smaller lots. Residents, when asked that, 69% responded that, that would be something that they would like to see as a means to preserve open space. Back in 2008, the response rate was about 75%. So that's come down a little bit. Next, we asked the residents' perception of the housing need, whether you agree or strongly agree. 91% responded single family. I'll let you go down the list. Interestingly, when we compared this to 2008, the biggest jump was in the duplexes and condominiums apartments. Both those categories saw an increase of 23% from 2008, and that's likely a reflection of housing prices and what people deem affordable. I think the perception is that duplexes and apartments offer a slightly more affordable option than single-family homes. And again, I want to emphasize we have more detailed questions and responses in the 50-page survey report. So again, we're just touching on some of the highlights. When we get into the agriculture and land use, 71% of respondents strongly agree or agree development should use less rural land and be more compact around cities and villages. This is up 4% from 2008. 89% of residents support restrictions or regulations on new land development. 11% said there should not be any restrictions. This is about the same from 2008. And then 83% of residents strongly agree or agree that too much farmland is being converted to non-farm uses. And this is up significantly. It's up about 10% from 2008. And then below you can see the residents' responses to what uses should be allowed in ag areas. Obviously, ag came in at 100%, but commercial, industrial kind of sits lower on the scale, and this is about the same from 2008. Economic development questions, when asked about perceptions of economic development, 90% of the responders support businesses being located in business industrial parks or downtown areas. This is up about 8% from 2008. 76% of the respondents support pursuing solar energy as a form of economic development, and we are starting to see the beginning of that in St. Croix County. We do have a couple of larger solar farms, one that has been approved and one that's going through the approval process at the state level in the town of Ceylon. 74% of the respondents support the county coordinating with the St. Croix County Economic Development Corporation to recruit new business. This is about the same as 2008. And then 60% of the respondents support using local tax dollars to attract new jobs or retain existing jobs, and this is down about 5% from 2008. And then lastly, when it comes to economic development, we asked respondents to choose the top 3 businesses residents think the county should attract. You can see there, ag business, high-tech industry, service business were all supported by more than half the respondents. Other options that they had to choose from were retail, light industrial, manufacturing, tourism, ag entertainment, and the public sector. And then wrapping up, when it comes to transportation, residents strongly agreed to the following. 81% believe the overall road network is meeting the needs of its citizens. However, 74% believe the increasing traffic on roads is a problem. And this is up 6% from 2008. 62% believe the county should work to expand public transit opportunities. We did not define what that was in the survey. So people could view that to mean either actual transportation systems, park and ride lots, bus service. It was pretty open-ended. And then lastly, we asked residents to pick 3 items that they feel are most important actions the county should pursue. And pretty self-explanatory there. Preserving rural small-town character, water quality came up big in this response, and minimize urban sprawl. The other choices they had to pick from was preserve prime ag land, preserve green space, encourage affordable housing, promote renewable energy, improve county roads, economic development, industrial, commercial, address the impacts of extreme weather, climate change, improve parks, and promote tourism. So again, those are the top 3 responses. More details are within the survey report. So that was just a rough overview. That was more or less the executive summary. As I mentioned earlier, additional survey data will be used in future meetings as we get into specific chapters. So I will stop there and take any questions or comments, or if you would like Nicole to walk through the open access survey first before we answer questions.
Do we have questions yet, or do we want to go on to the next survey? Go to the next survey.
$114, okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. As John stated, we ran a second survey, and I'll be presenting just the results of that online open access survey. And the purpose to do this second survey was to provide an opportunity to all the residents to provide feedback into the comprehensive planning process. And the survey had unrestricted access to the public as an alternative method to the random selection of households that UWRF conducted. The goals of this survey were to increase public participation, provide greater online access, and focus on visual preference questions. And the survey was developed in September and November of 2022, and it was open from late November of 2022 till February of 2023. Participants were asked to complete 22 questions with the incorporation of all of the Wisconsin State Statute comprehensive plan elements. And county staff, we promoted this survey through Facebook and the county's website, also public meeting announcements and emails to local and state organizations, also community partners and interest groups. A total of 211 surveys were gathered. I'll quickly review some survey demographics that are found in the report on packet pages 126 through 128. A little over half of the respondents were rural residents, either farm or non-farm, compared to 45% urban residents, city or village. And regarding participant location, all but 3 communities in St. Croix County were represented in this open access survey. Over half of the respondents are longtime residents living in the county from 11 to 40 years, and most participants were ages 40 to 70. So the first comprehensive plan element is land use and growth. The graph on the left, participants were asked their opinion regarding the most appealing form of rural landscape development, either traditional subdivision or conservation design. And the results showed that over 70% prefer conservation design. And similarly, in the UWRF presentation that John just gave, there was about 70% preference for that conservation design, shown on the right of the graph on the left. The graph on the right, participants were asked their level of concern regarding rural landscape development and shown a map of the sanitary systems installed from prior to 1980 up to 2021. And so the red on that map on the right is the more dense development that's happened and the more permits that took place. And the survey results on the graph on the right show that most respondents, 78%, were somewhat concerned or very concerned about the level of rural landscape development. The next comprehensive plan element is agricultural resources. The graph on the left shows that participants were asked their level of concern regarding farmland conservation to non-farm uses and shown a map of the farm preservation areas that are shown in green on that map on the left. The white areas are the rural residential areas. Most respondents, 86%, were somewhat concerned or very concerned with that level of farmland conversion to non-farm uses. The graph on the right shows us that participants were asked to select all of the images of rural residential development, and that's the area outside the cities and villages that are most visually appealing. And they had the ability to select more than one image. And the results reveal that participants preferred the images that show no visible structures or homes, which were sites 1, 5, 8, and 9. And then their secondary preference was a single house visible with screening or landscaping. And that was sites 6, 4, and 2. And the least preferred images showed multiple visible homes, including multifamily houses. Okay. And the next comprehensive plan element is natural resources. That graph on the right, participants were asked, how concerned are you with the preservation of natural resources in the county? And as you can see, over 80%, actually it was 94%, were very concerned or somewhat concerned. And the graph on the right is a comparison with the UWRF survey, which showed very similar results. Participants were asked the importance of protecting all of the listed natural resources. And over 90% thought that it was very important or important in every category, ranging from groundwater quality at the top down to native prairie land and grasslands at the bottom. The next topic is transportation. Participants were asked to select images of the pedestrian and bicycling infrastructure that they are most comfortable with. They had the ability to select more than one. Most respondents prefer recreational trails, 76%. They also prefer off-road transportation trails at 66%, and municipal walkways at 53%. Next topic was economic development. And the graph on the left shows participants were asked their opinion regarding the appropriate location of commercial businesses in the rural area outside cities and villages. They were also shown this map of the zoning with the commercial industrial zones highlighted. And the two most preferred responses at the left side of the graph reveal that over 50% support commercial strips along major highways, and over 40% support commercial nodes at major intersections. The graph on the right, participants were asked to select the images of the types of commercial, business, and industrial development that they support in the county. Over 50% of participants prefer the images that show farming, city village downtown, private granary, rural business, co-op granary, and interstate highway commercial. And also having to do with economic development, and please refer to the packet page 139 within the report, participants were asked to select the images of the renewable energy resources that they support in the county, and most participants supported small-scale solar at 77%, wind at 53%, and commercial solar at 50%. The next comprehensive plan element is county services or intergovernmental cooperation. And in both graphs, survey participants were asked to select the images of the categories of intergovernmental cooperation that they are satisfied with and had the ability, again, to select more than one. And so the graph on the left, most participants are satisfied with county dispatch, library system, and school districts. And the graph on the right, over 50% of participants are satisfied with transportation, road maintenance, parks, county sheriff, and recycling, cost share, and education. And just for reference, the UWRF survey comparison of a similar question, residents were asked to rank the quality of various county facilities and services, and similar results revealed that over 50% ranked the same services good or excellent. And those services, again, were the county sheriff. In the UWRF, these 87% selected good or excellent. Parks, 85% selected good or excellent. Road maintenance, 63% selected good or excellent. And recycling, 57% selected good or excellent. The next element is housing. The graph on the left shows that respondents prefer that new residential development be located primarily in a village or city where public sewer and water are available, 58%, or secondary, they prefer that both cities or villages and rural properties with private septic systems and wells at 36%. The graph on the right, participants were asked to select the images of types of housing they would like to see in the rural town. Again, that's the area outside the cities and villages. They had the ability to select more than one. And most participants selected single family, 3 to 5 acres, or single family, 10 plus acres, and conservation design cluster. The next element is community facilities and cultural resources. The graph on the left, participants were asked to rank the 10 St. Croix County parks in order of most used at the top and least used at the bottom. Participants were shown photos of each of the facilities for reference, and the results showed the weighted average score, with the top 3 being Homestead Parklands, Glen Hills Park, and Troy Beach. The graph on the right shows that participant support of county cultural resources, and the participants were shown the photos for reference, of course, again. The top 3 were being historic preservation, rustic roads, and music. And lastly, the last comprehensive plan element is issues and opportunities or quality of life. The graph on the left shows you the participants were asked to select from all of the previous topics in the survey and what is the most important topic. And most participants chose land use, development, growth, and zoning, and then natural resources, and finally agricultural resources. Participants were asked also, what do you like most about St. Croix County, in a text response? and the word cloud on the right, and also the graphs and the table on packet pages 148 and 149 of the staff report show the top results that include natural beauty, preservation of natural resources, open and green space, rural living, landscape, character, and setting, and the close access to the Twin Cities. And that concludes the summary of the open online access survey. And please feel free to ask I or John any questions about our process. Thank you.
Do we have questions? Who'd like to go first? Sean, Jerry? Everybody's...
Yeah, I guess my question is, the way the phrasing "concerned with" can mean two different things. It can mean like you value how it's going to turn out, and you can also mean like you have an issue with how it's currently operating. If that makes sense. Concerned is like you're worried about what the status currently is, but it could also be interpreted as, at least in my mind, you're invested in, or you think it's important that it be considered. Do we know, and I had an example and I can't remember it, like specifically what people interpreted that as, and if the answer is no, then that's fine. But it was pretty early.
Is it expressed as an opinion, or does it mean has to do with? Sometimes you say concerned with means has to do with.
Right. Or like are invested in or care about, or it can also mean like you're concerned, or you're like worried.
It could be expressed an opinion of, or it could mean has to do with.
Packet page 115. And then my second question with that same survey question is, are these sanitary systems like include new systems that are put in on sites that already had systems located? Like if something was put in pre-1980, it probably had another system, that property probably had another system put in by now. Is that counted twice? And was that clear?
So your first question was regarding this packet page, this question. How concerned are you with the way St. Croix County rural landscape is developing under the present zoning ordinances of the county?
Yeah, if that was the direct question, then it's probably just up to interpretation. But then I guess the second question still stands is, are there some properties that are counted or shown as two septic systems because they had something put in pre-1980 and had it replaced since then? Is that counted twice? That's probably a question for the county staff, but...
This graph shows by year, and so the different colors are just all of the permits that were gathered in that 1 year.
So it's all the permits. So a replacement is still a permit. You don't know whether it's a replacement or a brand new system.
I believe it's new.
It's just a permit.
All the permits.
So it would include replacement. And your first question, we have no idea what they were thinking when they read it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure at this point to be able to answer what the map reflects replacement systems or not. But there's generally, I don't believe that there's that many replacement systems to affect the overall map, but it could definitely include them.
And I would just add that I think it probably does include all replacement systems, but again, at that scale, it isn't impacting how much red or not red there is. And as you know from our annual reports, the number of replacement systems is usually about a third. And it's been going up. I forget how much, but I still think it wouldn't, at that scale, it wouldn't make a difference. So, and as far as the, I don't know how people took the word concerned. You know, even the other question right next to it is most appealing, you know, someone might say, in what way is it appealing? You know, to live there, to just look at, everything is always subjective. We work hard to eliminate some of that, but you can't do 100%.
It's a good question, though, Sean. And language is important in these things. And do you think it's leading?
I mean, the first time I read it, I was, you know, like, I thought of it as, like, do you care? And then I thought, like, 2 seconds later, I probably would have answered the question in a way that I think most people probably would is are you worried? Or something like that. But I just interpret it 2 different ways, so I guess it's possible that other people might have too.
It's a good observation.
No, the survey design is one of the things that reasons we try to work with UW River Falls too on their survey research center on research or on survey design to try to work those questions out. And even on that survey, I think you still can have those same concerns on any of those questions.
Well, survey language is like the flip side of the coin of survey statistics. It's almost impossible to anticipate, and they affect each other so much. So it's very interesting to hear somebody actually willing to give an opinion about it. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm fascinated to hear an engineer's perspective. So it's because I kind of like a lot of these phrases. I was like, yeah, because I always question push polls, although I always answer when they call me. But I think that's a great observation, so not judging it. So, okay. Any other questions? Jerry, you were going?
Beautiful survey, a lot of work done. What are we going to do with it?
So as we move forward in putting an updated draft together, we're going to be using the survey results as a guide, a discussion more for the benefit of the committee members and the public. We're going to be posting this information online, but you know, we're going to be having an upcoming study session that talks about land use in the county and how land use impacts and affects different systems within the county. So we're going to be pulling more detailed questions and responses. We just touched the surface of some of the responses, but depending on the chapter we're talking about, we're going to be pulling up more responses and public opinion relating to that specific chapter, whether it's land use or transportation. Our objective is to have a draft wrapped up by the end of the year, early next year. So we'll be using these survey results off and on over the course of this year to help guide our discussions. Not that that's the telltale answers of where the committee wants to go, but it provides a pretty good public opinion on what people are thinking about some of these topics. That's the intent.
Anybody else? And John, could you remind us of the schedule for the comprehensive plan? What's the next big milestone here?
So over the course of the next few months, we do intend on having a discussion with you next week regarding our first chapter. We're going to spend more time on to get some feedback and direction from the committee. We also have a series of other workshops we'd like to schedule with you to get direction on some of the key chapters that we're focusing on this update, those being land use, natural resources, ag preservation, and transportation. So we're going to be meeting with Robbie Krecky, our highway department. They also have a transportation committee that will be providing some feedback and guidance for us. The objective is to work through the 9 different chapters and get to a draft by the end of this year. We also have a very active project webpage, so if people want to visit the St. Croix County website, within community development, we have a project webpage. Now that we shared the results of the surveys with you, we are going to post those tomorrow so people can begin looking at those as well.
Anything else? Great. Moving on. Next business item is consideration of St. Croix County Economic Development Corporation funding. And I placed this on the agenda because we have a budget coming up and because our referendum failed. We went through the entire exercise of looking at what is a required and not required budget line items over the course of the last year and a half. And this particular budget line item is not a required mandated item. We have a really dire need for our Sheriff's Department. And what we really need is to have a steady stream of funding for it. The Economic Development Corporation doubled in 2012, we doubled our contribution. So that over the course of the last 10 years, we have contributed to them it's about $1.35 million. What I have wondered, and truly I have never said that they do nothing. What I have said is that I've never seen a performance metric as to what they have brought to the county in terms of new businesses or full-time equivalent jobs or living wage full-time equivalent jobs. And those would be the performance metrics that I would like to see to justify that kind of investment. We contribute $117,000 a year right now, which is a great deal of money. And what I am bringing to the committee is a request to reconsider that. The next highest level donor to the organization pays $2,500. So it's quite a jump. You go from $2,500 to $117,000. And when I say there's not accountability, what I mean is there's no performance metric. And when we ask for one in a contract for services, we voted no because unfortunately I had long COVID and I was really sick and I wasn't here to explain and negotiate that, and I apologize for that. It was unfortunate. But here we are in a budget cycle with a serious need. The public made it very, very clear that they didn't want to add to their tax base, but they also made it very clear that they want to add to the public protection. I put a support posting on the local Facebook page, please vote for this. And I had my backside handed to me by the locals. They said, no, we're not going to vote for this, and blah, 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 and it was instructive. And I'm looking in our survey, and a real strong majority says they support Economic Development Corporation going out and recruiting businesses. And if, in fact, they could prove that they've gone out and recruited businesses by saying, look, we recruited this business and this business and this business and this business, and they provided this number of jobs, leave us alone, give us the money, well, I back off. But every time I've asked that question, it's been met with obfuscation. So here we are. I'm not criticizing, I just would like to see the data, and at the point that I haven't had the data, being a good steward of public trust, I'm bringing it to you. Let's consider the ideas that I've brought to you. They also have a $330,000 bankroll. At least half of it is taxpayer money. I wouldn't feel that we have an obligation to not reconsider, at least bring our contribution down. So it's in no way meant to be mean-spirited to ask you to reconsider bringing to the county board for a budget discussion lowering our contribution to the Economic Development Corporation and asking you to discuss it. And for you, at that point, to turn it over to you for an open-minded conversation.
Yeah, so in my mind, it makes sense that we are the largest, I guess, supporter of the EDC as we represent the whole county. Some of the other jurisdictions are a lot smaller, cities and certain businesses, and it makes sense for the largest. Now, as far as the actual level, I understand that maybe it does need to be subject to some cuts. I don't know about dropping it to $2,500 or even, I don't think I'd want it anywhere below $100,000. But if we need to cut a couple thousand on this one line item to fund this other one, that can be part of our budget process. I don't necessarily think we should make a special agenda item over this. If it's something that needs to change slightly, can be included in the general budget discussion. I don't think it needs to be a separate line item, but again, I don't want to see it to go anywhere below $100,000, and even that would be pushing it for me.
I've had the opportunity to work with the EDC in a past job, and they did a good job. I mean, they helped us move some land around St. Croix Electric Cooperative in Hammond. Hammond's not necessarily the easiest town to sell, yet we were able to bring a number of jobs to the area because they were on top of it, and they actually pushed the package. So I'm sorry that they haven't given us a report card, but if that's a report card at all, they did a fine job. And they worked with it. They had a little interaction while I was president of the Chamber of Commerce in Baldwin, and there too, yeah, they attended meetings and gave us a lot of valuable information with our things. Everybody's looking at a budget cut. I kind of go along with what Sean is saying. Some budget cut is probably in order. I'd like to know how the number 117,000 came up. I mean, to me, that's kind of odd. Can anybody give me a bit of history on that? Why it's there and you know.
That's not how it works, no. I'll ask you in just a second. Things go up incrementally, you know. Then they have a request, and the administrator will go ahead and it goes up by a percent, and by a percent it'll go up. But what we do is will honor a request. It hasn't gone up for a few years. So, but what you've said is you've gotten some things out of it. What I'm questioning is that worth $117,000? Is it worth taxpayer money to do these things? Is the question. Is the taxpayer getting a value? And that's always been my concern. Are we being good stewards of the taxpayer's dollar? Because certainly we have the Chambers of Commerce, and each community has an economic development organization also in River Falls, New Richmond, and Hudson. Are we not replicating those efforts?
Okay, if I could respond to that. Baldwin doesn't have an economic development corporation, so we were happy for their help. Hammond does not either, so they fit that bill. So is it valuable? Is that taxpayer money that we're spending, is that valuable? I think to the community that they help out, it certainly is. Now, I know what they did for helping us in Hammond. I can only imagine they're doing that in other communities too. Even if they're feeding the community EDCs information, that still is valuable. And so that's kind of what I based my thought on. And
I think the ask for a metric is really, really hard. You know, as a contractor, working with EDC, working with Chamber of Commerce, State of Wisconsin, whatever it is, all of those people have touches on where a company may move. They may have influence here or there. If we dwindle that list down so that there's less touches on those people. They may still move here, they may not, but the more influence and stuff that we have for St. Croix County, I think the better. As far as funding goes, I agree that we have a tough budget coming up. I think that we have funding sources and we have ways to get done what we need to do without trying to, how do we say this? How to, without cutting off our hand of economic development and more of a, they do more than just that. It's the PR, it's the everything else that the county does. If we cut them off and they decide that, you know, for some odd reason, if they just walk away and say, no, we're done, who is going to do it? And I think that as St. Croix County, we need to fund them. And I personally, 117,000, I don't know that we necessarily give them enough.
All right, I appreciate your comments. I really do. Mr. Sundin, I'd invite you to the podium. I do have a question, a couple.
I'll try my best to answer them.
All right. I have been interested in getting a performance metric for a decade. How many companies do we attract? The idea, now please bear me out, the idea of Economic Development Corporation in the public's eye, as you saw in this, is that we go out and we attract businesses. The idea, the ideal, I know that there's many things that you do, but the idea is that we attract businesses. It's a very small part of what actually happens with our Economic Development Corporation. Is there something that you can do to actually go out, without asking for more money, to go out and actually attract more businesses to this community? What do you need to do to bring in actual, companies to come here?
Sure. A couple clarifications. So I think what Mr. Shirley said is accurate in the sense that the EDC and your chambers of commerce, the county, touch a lot of these projects. And to the point of, we may be involved in helping them with site selection. We may be involved with helping them learn about incentives and those types of things. Those jobs come in, they might be touched by 4 or 5 different entities, create 50 jobs, and then is the expectation that that's the EDC's project. We can go back and trace projects that we've done in the county that have those metrics you're looking for. And in fact, we have a scorecard we expect the executive director to follow that we look at every year. And it has to do with the incentives that he's helped facilitate for businesses, whether it's expansion, whether it's new growth, whether it's hiring new people, whatever it might be. We're involved with the Regional Business Fund, and we help people get financing that way. That's another thing we touch. Does anybody else touch that? Certainly. So although it's hard to pinpoint and say we did all this, we can say we were involved with these things, and that's happening right now. As far as attracting new business, it's happening all the time. Told you about the marketing that we're doing. We're facilitating a roundtable discussion that will be this summer with the municipalities around St. Croix County. I just talked to Roberts today. I'd like to have their board members, I'd like to have clerks, whoever it might be, bringing those people together, talking about best practices that are happening, because let's face it, things that are happening in River Falls aren't necessarily the same as what's happening in Roberts or Baldwin. So how do we teach those people and educate them and bring them together to how to do all these things? So a lot of the things that you're saying you don't see are happening. And as I've told you, if there's a conflict within someone in our organization and you, let's get over it. and let's find out how we get you that information. You've got 3 excellent board members that are on our board. One is here tonight. We've got Kara Cook. We've got Paul Burning. They're active in our meetings. They know what's going on. So somehow we need to get that communication back to this committee so we can, again, have collaboration. We're in a competitive environment, and I'm a developer, I'm a builder. I want those people to come here as much as the county does. So how can we work together to do that?
I really appreciate you coming here. I'm hoping that was a rhetorical question at this point, because I have good colleagues who will continue to keep us informed. I also appreciate what you're doing with the Bicycle Coalition. That effort's good, and I just wanted to point that out. I thought that would come up.
May I make one more comment?
Sure, go ahead.
I understand, and I don't need to get into the history. If you want to know the history of how the county got to where it's at on an investment level, it goes back way before most of us. But basically, at that time, the administrator thought it was best to fund the organization at a 60-40 split. And so, in other words, the county paid 60-40. That ran in a rut for a while. I can tell you that we view the value of our organization more, so we've gone out to private businesses. The highest investment level for private business now is $5,000. I will also tell you that as the main member, or I should say the highest paying member of the St. Croix EDC, one of the things that the county gets out of this is you're on everything that we do, any publication, any event that we have, any marketing. So consider $117,000 or $115,000 investment as really an investment into our total budget of $260,000, $270,000. That's what you're getting out of the organization. So
I appreciate you coming very much. And we're going to just let it all stand. I understand where my colleagues are. I wanted to have a conversation about it, and we got it. And I deeply appreciate you taking the time to come.
Not a problem. Like I said, I live in New Richmond. Happy to meet you for coffee or chat some more.
Maybe we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to ask for a financial report.
Financial report is in the packet. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions?
We're through the month of March here. There's really nothing to highlight at this point in the year. There's nothing exciting going on. Everything's tracking according to budget pretty closely, so.
Did we get in all the grant funding we're expecting for 22?
Water resources.
We still would be waiting for, I was looking at that earlier in the budget, and I would say that one that might not be in there is the other half of the snowmobile funding. That one might not be shown in there, and but I think the rest of it is, for the most part. Yeah. Is there a specific area you were asking about?
General question. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
In celebration of Earth Day, there is one event called Earth Fest in River Falls, April 22nd, which is actual Earth Day. And our department will be there with a booth, that kind of thing. There's also a second celebration of Earth Day in Hudson on April 29th, and again, our department will be there with water quality information, recycling information, and also parks information at both of those events. Just letting you know about them. Another thing I hope all of you will put on your calendars, and I'll probably announce this more than once, but we're going to have a grand opening for our Vista Prairie Campground at Glen Hills, our new group camp / individual camp on June 3rd, Saturday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. We'll do a few little events and a few speeches, and anybody who comes gets to make a speech if you like. So that also coincides with the state of Wisconsin has a free entry and fishing day every year, or weekend, excuse me. And so that is free fishing and free entry day for all state parks, and we always have for many, many years coincided with that. And we have free entry and fishing, well, we don't do fishing, but free entry day at all county parks that day. So we should have a nice turnout. We'll cross our fingers. And I do know that Vista Prairie has been rented, at least, I don't know if it's totally sold out, but rented for that weekend. We'll see more once we push it a little harder. So wanted to mention those two things. And then date of the next meeting is on the next page. And I would just tell you that I have, that of course is there's two of them. It's our special meeting next week, April 27th. So here's just a copy of the agenda for you guys, just for reference. And that's going to be our work session in which we are going to start working on looking more in depth at our survey results and talking particularly about our land use elements of our comprehensive plan project. And if you recall, it's from 5 to 7 p.m. in this room on a week from today. Okay, and then the next regular meeting after that is May 23rd.
Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Sean?
I feel like I'm saying more than usual today, but it's just randomly popped in my head, but the Elkhart Blufflands, I know there's a big, lofty development plan for it. I know personally, I don't, anyway, I just want to, I'm not going to say too much, but I just want to look at what the cost would look like for developing maybe some gravel lots where the blacktop is planned to go, and just the trail system first instead of the whole thing all at once. And I'm just looking for budgetary information. I don't need it down to the cent. You can give me within, a few $1,000s is close enough for me. Sorry.
100,000, that's more what I'm.
Okay, give it to me within 200,000. Fine. That's just a general. Yeah.
Sure.
And we have created a couple of gravel parking lots for hunters and for other people who come in and just walk the property. There's 2 spots where we already have gravel down and signage, and we've already done that. We have not done any trail improvements, so there aren't any actual trails right now.
We will be working on capital improvement, so at some point, that'll be coming through the committee. Your point, though, they'll work on that as part of the capital improvement. They can maybe carve off something that looks like a 1A piece.
And we're getting dangerously close to.
Yeah, I know. I'm just telling you when it's going to come up on the agenda. So we will address your request. It won't be on next month's agenda, but we'll do it as part of the capital improvement.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like, we haven't heard for a while, I'd like an update on the Wildwood Trail.
We're working on that. Potentially at the next month's meeting, we were planning on it. So if we're ready by then, which I think we might be, we will definitely have that on the agenda, hopefully with solution.
I just wanted to add, I was thinking about Sean's question earlier regarding Elkhart Blufflands, and I just wanted to, what occurred to me as a thought that I thought maybe would, something to think about between now and next Thursday when we talk about it in greater depth, is that if you look at the whole survey, there are actually answers to that. What are they concerned about? What does that mean? If you think about what are the most important things, that one of the last questions, water quality. So when they see the sanitaries, water quality probably came to mind. Urban sprawl was another thing that was brought up repeatedly, protection of agriculture. I think that you can tie you can read through the whole survey, and the answers to what are they concerned about when they say very concerned are right there in the survey for you to find. Okay.
All right. Any other requests for agenda items? The next meeting is a week from today, 5 p.m. What, oh, one more agenda item?
I just thought of one more announcements. For those of you who are interested, Mr. Witt in particular, the delivery of the trees and for our tree and plant sale will be May 4th and 5th. All right? And there's probably a lot of people in the public who want to know that too, so I thought it might be good to say it here.
All right, next meeting is a week from today, 5 p.m., and the next regular meeting is May 18th. Thanks very much. Meeting's adjourned.